So hi everybody and welcome to episode 27 of Level Up. 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions and votes really do drive the show. Now wherever you're watching, click on the link in the chat and go over to Slido, which is where you can upvote the questions that you would most like answered. And of course, add in your own. In the first half, we're going to be talking about project management and change management, those two disciplines which are inextricably linked throughout most of our modern lives. So you can ask pretty much any question you would like relating to those. In the second half, we're going to focus on project politics. Why do some projects become more political than others? And what coping strategies should we develop when they do? So let's jump straight in and meet our panel, all of whom are now regular contributors on Level Up. First of all, it's Shontelle Bryan. She's the MD and lead trainer at Change Consult. She works with corporate executives to help them realise their vision, a regular contributor, as I say. So welcome back, Shontelle.
Thank you so much, Nick. It's a pleasure to be back on the panel today.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Jackie Hewett is Operations Director at Balance Global, where she develops and delivers training on a whole range of different project management and change management methodologies. Welcome back, Jackie.
Hi, Nick. Yep, thanks for the introduction. I'm very interested in this session because, in my experience, politics is endemic in projects, whether you're a contractor, whether you're a permanent member of staff, it's always there.
They're always there, aren't they? It's always either underlying or on the surface or visible to everybody. So good point. Thank you very much. Jeroen Geurtsen leads the Zest Group Academy, delivers a whole range of consultancy work from mergers and acquisitions, M&A work, all of the way through business process improvement, best practices, and so on. Welcome back, Jeroen. Good to see you.
Thanks, Nick. Yes, indeed. More than 35 years of experience in running projects as well. It's good to give training, but it's also a lot more fun to do the project yourself and extend your experience on that. Yeah. And that's also why I like to be in this session. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yeah, indeed. And it's a really good point that you make because, whatever aspect of our careers we have, pretty much everybody on the panel has been there and done it themselves, many times as well. And that's really why we come together to share that experience. So thank you very much indeed. That's really good. And Bikram Routray is an independent consultant with experience working across multiple industry sectors. He's also certified in multiple project and change management disciplines as well. So welcome back, Bikram. Great to see you.
Thank you, Nick. Good to have you for the second time. I'm looking forward to it. It's quite interesting for me, having AgilePM, having PMP Prince 2 side of it, and looking into the change management and agile changes. And so I think I can contribute to today's session. Thank you.
I'm sure that you will do, my friend. I'm sure that you will do. Now, look, if you're watching us and you feel that you could also answer some of the questions, then please do just volunteer in the chat. And we'll be in touch to welcome you to the panel in the future. Completing our group today is Charlotte Miller. She's our question master, and she is joining us from the Thames Valley in the UK. So, Charlotte, let's go straight ahead and have the first question, please.
Thank you, Nick. We have the first question today from Romain, Paris, France. What is the most effective way to manage scope creep? Many of our projects are seen as failures because of this issue.
Okay, Jackie, and then Jeroen.
Yeah, this is the age-old issue, isn't it? This might sound really obvious, but the first thing is to know what your scope is. If you don't know the parameters of your project, how can you possibly contain and manage it? And a lot of organizations, if the project's internal, kind of get used to free work, if you like, and don't realize the knock-on effect that change is going to have and going to kill projects. There are so many things you can say on this, but I don't want to steal the thunder and leave nothing for the rest of the panel.
Okay, all right. Well, we might come back to you in a few moments. Jeroen and then Bikram.
Yeah, it's crucial for this to have a complete holistic approach on what the objective is that you really need to get. Because if you don't do enough, it might be worthless. But if you keep on doing things and delaying what you deliver, then probably also the business will fail. And it's really to find the balance there. Techniques you can use is benefit mapping, but you very good must align it that with the stakeholders involved in the project and in the business that will get the benefits from the project.
Okay, thank you, Bikram.
Yeah, I'll second it to Jeroen. So I do have, while handling similar kind of situation in the past, I have used 4-point formula. Number one, having a sign-off with your stakeholders, if possible. I know many times it could be difficult to have a sign-off. And the second one, to do a what-if analysis kind of thing, to see what if this stakeholder might go wrong or bring in something else. The third and very important point, to have that courage to say no. Many times we do not know how to say no, and it just goes on and on. And the fourth one, it's always good to have the CR in place, change request in place, so that that will save your day being a project manager as a change manager when you do have those change requests or change management curriculum in place.
Okay, thank you. Jackie, come back in.
Yeah, I think having a change budget and a change authority from your user community can really focus their minds and contain change. If they know they've only got a certain amount of money, they might start spending their way through it quite early on in a project, but they start to self-regulate if they really know you've got some change money and this is it, and you've nearly eaten it up.
It's a really good idea, that, and one that encourages some other techniques as well that we'll probably come on to in a little while, to do with prioritization and facilitation and all of those good techniques that help you, to manage expectations and bring the community with you on that journey. So what a great question, Roman. So thank you very much indeed for that. Charlotte, let's move on now and we'll take our next question, please.
Got a question from Nick, Wokingham, UK. In the panel's experience, what do they enjoy most about leading a change initiative?
I thought I'd put a really positive question in here for today's panel. Jeroen and then Bikram.
Yeah, what is the most enjoying really achieving the result that will give benefits to the organization in a way that they can actively use it. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Great and well to the point. Bikram and then Shontelle.
Yeah, in my opinion, I'll put it in a generic perspective, how I have seen change. Typically, the stakeholder engagement or stakeholder management, whatever you say, lots of stakeholder management in and out you are doing with your internal stakeholders, external stakeholders. And the second point is challenge. Change, while dealing with the change initiative, it is a challenge every day. Every day is what I put it as a new day for you. There will be new landscape that is coming in. There will be new leadership. There will be new stakeholders. The requirements are just flying. So you need to control it on your own. So yes, it is
Excellent.
challenging.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shontelle and then Jackie.
When I'm leading a change initiative, I get really excited when I chat with senior management and they expand their change vision, when they see possibilities beyond what they thought, the initiative was about. I get really excited when they're able to see this, as well as adoption of the change. When individuals who never thought they could use a new IT system suddenly masters it, that feels really great. That, all of the effort that was put in the initiative has made it successful.
Excellent. Jackie, round that off for us.
Yeah, I think when we recognise a piece of work as a change and we regard it as a change initiative rather than just a method and an output and a thing we're kind of delivering, we appreciate better that it's about the people. And that's what makes it interesting, working with people, understanding their issues and kind of harnessing the people who are maybe resistant and using the people who bought in to start with and getting that sort of tipping point and that movement going.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Excellent answers. Charlotte, let's press on. I can see new questions coming in all the time. Next question, please.
Okay, we've got a question from Tim, Johannesburg, South Africa. How does Scrum fit in with AgilePM?
Okay, so more a methodology type question, Jeroen.
Yeah, well, you can see AgilePM just as a shell over the Scrum teams, and it's crucial when the initiative is bigger. There are more dependencies between the Scrum teams and the organization. Then you need that with the additional support. The product owner will be overrun if you don't have that in AgilePM. You will have a business analyst, which can also help on the more holistic view. You have the project manager in a role that will definitely also help more aligning with the organization and help for the deployment of the increments. And that will greatly help it. Okay, on Scrum, we do not have the Moscow, the must have, should have, could have, won't have approach. We have that in AgilePM, but it's not so difficult than what the Scrum team commits to. It just gives a bit more flexibility because it's complex. There is less certainty, and that can well be solved in AgilePM to deal with those complexities.
Okay, thank you very much. And I do think as well, from talking with other folks who have worked with both, is that you have some more business Velcro available to you into reach into more senior parts and to scale the approach if you're using a hybrid model of both. And although SAFe is pretty good up to a point, there's some stuff that AgilePM might bring you. So it's definitely a good and worthwhile methodology to have a look at if you're working in that kind of environment. Really good. Thank you very much. Let's take the next question, Charlotte, please.
We've got a question from Sharon, Delhi, India. My current organisation is going through a lot of change. What is the best way to get the teams aligned in our approach from administration to the senior management?
Jackie?
I don't think you're going to get any buy-in unless you really explain why this is so critical to your business, how it fits with your strategies, your vision. Have to understand the why.
It's always a good place to begin, isn't it? If you start with the why, then the what's and the how's and everything else kind of follow on from that. And I think the key part of that question, as I'm reading it, really is, alignment, and the best way to get alignment and to win those hearts and minds, really. Otherwise, you can get, a lot of folks who are kind of fighting, if you like, amongst themselves rather than actually expending their energies in a more focused way. So really good question. Thank you very much. Let's move on.
We've got a question from Jackie O, who's a live viewer for today. When leaders aren't clear on scope themselves, what advice can you give to narrow down stakeholders when they don't see clearly on scope themselves?
Okay, so it's a clarity really around scope and stakeholder engagement and sponsorship and leadership and so on. So Bikram first and then Jackie.
Yes, leadership or the leaders, they definitely has a role to play. And what I say as blessings from the top, that must be there to take care of any kind of change or dealing with your stakeholders. So unless we do have that blessings or the buy-in from the leaders, definitely it will be difficult to sail it through with the change. And talking about the scope, if the leaders are not bought into it, be it kind of a top-down or bottom-up approach, whatever, so that must be there. Leaders should be bought in, and because in a way we look into it as a kind of having those connection with our leaders or to see how they're moving the things, and that is where if it is not there, then I see there could be a disconnect.
Okay, Jackie, and then Jeroen.
Yeah, if you can get some of the stakeholders into a room together and have some kind of a workshop or even a virtual workshop to try and talk about the merits of their different perspectives, that can be helpful. And maybe try and challenge each requirement with what happens if this one isn't delivered? And try to sort of challenge, is everything, back to your Moscow really, is everything a must-have or not?
Okay, thank you, Jeroen.
Yeah, it's what you call the war room approach, where there is one room where everyone involved in the project can really go in and see what is there. And if there's nothing on the wall explaining the scope, then everyone will say, well, stop this project. And that way you will force the leaders that they need to be more clear on that. And by building up that picture on the wall, that will really get the visibility for everyone and the agreement.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's all about facilitating with those leaders, no matter what their level is within the organization. You know, sometimes what you can have is by the time you've summarized the summary and you've presented it, you know, at a C-suite level, it's a very small number of words to express an awful lot of ambition and strategy in a single statement. So, you know, involving people, facilitating, to Jackie's point, to Bikram's point, it's not easy, but it requires you to speak truth to power and say, look, we're confused again right now because some folks are thinking what you mean is this and others are thinking something different, you know, so we need to get together and just work this through, you know, collectively, and either, you know, take a decision or phase or, you know, whatever it is, however you're going to prioritize to get that clarity. So great question, and it's a very common one. It's much more common than you think, and I would say, you know, better to go back to the project sponsors early and talk that through with them, okay, and really get them helping you to drive down some certainty around what you're doing before you start to let things drift. Now, if you're watching online and you'd like to put a question to the panel, please do so. If you're watching on a browser, you can point your mobile phone at the QR code on the screen, or alternatively, just go to slido.com and type in the event number that you can see there, and then you'll be able to add your question. Or indeed, if you're in the chat on YouTube, just type it in the chat. We'll pick it up from there and bring it across for you. Charlotte, next question, please.
Okay, we've got a question from Alan in Berlin, Germany. I'm new to project management. Do you think it would be beneficial to find a mentor for the first years of my career in PM?
Well, not necessarily even just for the first years. I think I'm certainly still learning. So it's a bit of a rhetorical question, this. Bikram first and then Shontelle.
First of all, this is an excellent question. I think everybody here in the panel can connect here with this question. So I'm new to project management, and Nick, probably you have already answered it. You know, it is not only just in the initial year of your career, but throughout. You know, many times we switch over. That is also the time when you will be required to have the mentor. And yes, in the beginning phase, when probably you are jumping over to project management, definitely some of those tricks of the trades that definitely you need to learn. You need to know your organization. You need to know the environment where you are working. That is something important, and definitely throughout, it is a learning process with project management.
Okay, thank you very much. Shontelle, and then Jeroen.
I absolutely agree with Bikram. Yes, you definitely can benefit from a mentor, not only in the first few years of your career in PM, but throughout your career, because there's going to be a lot of things that you may not encounter that you may need advice on. So it really does help. And, you know, you get better over time with experience, and the more projects you do. You tend to build up a portfolio of tools, tricks, and tactics to deal with different situations. So don't despair. Experience will come, but the mentor can definitely help speed up that process.
Really good advice there, Jeroen. Finish us off, please.
Yeah, every project is unique, so it will always be different. And if you have someone with a lot of experience that can help you, doesn't need to be another project manager. It can also be project support officers that have already supported other projects as well. And that can also help you with the things you might not know in that situation.
It's great advice. You know, the project management office, the PMO professional, the folks doing quality auditing, all of these people are actually great allies to be able to dip into. The other thing that I would say is, as well, from my time in consulting, working across different industries, is sometimes, no matter how experienced you are, it's super helpful to have somebody that really understands that particular domain, that particular industry vertical. You know, when I worked for a while in capital markets, in financial services, it uses a language and a set of nomenclature that was completely alien to me. The words sounded familiar, but they actually meant very different things. So it doesn't always have to be about the method. It can also be about the industry that you're trying to work in or the project that you're working on as well. Very good. Thank you. What a great question. Charlotte, can we take the next question, please?
We have another question from Nick in Wokingham, UK. Does the panel feel that people are being priced out of the market as some certifications increase rapidly in cost?
So this is really about access to everybody all around the world. Is there a barrier to entry now when the prices of education and training and certifications are rising all of the time? Just wondered how the panel felt about this. Jackie, and then Jeroen.
Yeah, I think some qualifications, they're introducing things like, you must have a mandated exam to even learn this topic or get a book. But of course, you can take on things like Praxis, which is sort of like the open source. I like to liken it to the Wikipedia, if you like, for project management. The very, very low barrier to entry there, really.
And as a principal, Jackie, do you feel that we should sustain that and have broader access for people in principle?
I think the whole world's going that way. With all the amount of sort of videos and YouTubes, and there's a lot of free stuff out there. Okay, a lot of times you can't beat having that certificate. But if you've got some experience, once you're sort of foot in the door, having experience, I think really counts. You've got a story to tell. But yeah, there's so much free resource out there, and I think we have to face it that the world is going that way. We can't fight it.
Okay, thank you, Jeroen. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I can be very short on that. We don't see it as an issue because it keeps on having benefits, and in the end, what you get back is a lot more than what you pay for the certification.
Right. So there's certainly that value pyramid, and there's certainly the ability to be able to capture people at different stages of their career and bring them into the fold, if you like, for a more formal education and training. So yeah, very good. Thank you very much, panel. Very interesting. Thank you. Charlotte, let's take one more question and then we'll get into the focus topic for today.
Question from Harry, Manchester, UK. What change management toolkits do the panel recommend?
Okay, so toolkits, Jeroen.
Yeah, it's really not toolkits that I recommend because there are so many things and so many tools. And that's why this is the only thing I will recommend, which also really involves with the stakeholder engagement training of APMG.
Okay, thank you. And we'll put a little link in the chat for those folks who are listening on the audio. Jeroen's just held up a really useful publication actually to be able to consider. Shontelle, your thoughts, please.
In terms of change management toolkits, some of the content that you would learn on the APMG Change Management Foundation course can be put into a toolkit of sorts. So you would learn about things like resistance and formulating a resistance plan. That can be a part of your toolkit, stakeholder strategy, etc. So, it can be basically what you want it to be and what you want to have in your change management toolkit. But if you've studied the APMG change management course, you can find lots of examples in that course on templates that you can use and formulate your own toolkit from that.
Okay, thank you very much. It did very helpful. Bikram, finish us off on this topic, please.
Yeah. So to add up to Shontelle, what she just described in terms of APMG's change management, we covered 4 topics there. One is how individuals are impacted because of the change, how the organization is impacted because of the change, the communication and stakeholder, and lastly, change management practice, because we know many times how to arrive at the destination, but how do you sustain it? So in a way, APMG's change management that covers enough to put you in a context of toolkit to take it forward with the change, any kind of change.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. The one thing that I would add to all of that is to also consider some skills and techniques to go alongside those, and we might explore that a little bit more in our next section. As we're going to change gear right now, and I'm going to ask Shontelle just to join me to discuss our focus topic for today. For those of you who are following along in Slido, then just click on the focus topic tab, all right, and add in your questions. Now, for as long as I can remember, consultants have described some of the projects that they've been working on as really political, and usually this kind of came across in a fairly negative way, that, somehow this made their job more challenging, it was more difficult. And authors have captured this from Jeffrey Pinto in the early days all the way through to membership bodies acknowledging that projects are delivered through ultimately power and influence, regardless of where that might come from. So Shontelle, why do you think that somebody working on a project might describe it as becoming more political? What would you imagine are the underlying causes that might bring that about?
So an individual may describe a project as being political when they are individuals, let's say within the project team or stakeholders, who may be abusing their power to get their own way. They may be challenging the scope or the status quo in order to basically advance their agenda. And they may just want to win at all costs, basically whatever they want to achieve. They want that to happen. So it may be described as project politics because individuals basically want to have their task or their deliverable. And it would be a win-lose situation, more or less. They want it at the detriment of others.
Right. So it's a way of being evidencing that you're not aligned with the project objectives in a way. If you're kind of raising these sorts of things in a political way rather than dealing with them, kind of face to face, if that makes sense. So in that regard, then, who do you feel is best equipped to deal with this kind of negativity involved in project politics? Would it be the project manager or the change manager role? Who should really lead on that?
Okay, so if a change manager is working on a project, both the project and the change manager working together are well equipped to deal with project politics. Because on one hand, you have the project manager who is responsible for resources. They're also responsible for dealing with issues and risks, as well as people issues within the team. So it is inherent within the role of the project manager to deal with project politics. Now, as well, the change manager, they're the individual who, is trained on behaviors and motivations of individuals. As a part of their role, they need to handle resistance, etc. So this individual is well positioned to also deal with project politics because of the nature of their role. So when you combine the role of the project manager, the person having power and authority, and the change manager, the person who understands individuals and behaviors, when you combine and you look at the strengths of both of those individuals, they're well positioned to work together to deal with project politics.
Right, thank you very much. And from the sense of trying then to mitigate the impact of that negativity, what are the kind of techniques that you might use in order to be able to to do that?
In terms of techniques to mitigate project politics, it's really important that project managers get to know the members of their team and understand their motivations. They should also try to build trust within the project team. As well, what's really important is to set out the do's and don'ts that the team should follow in terms of how are we going to work together on this initiative? How are we going to communicate? How are we going to solve problems? It really helps that those types of things are discussed at the beginning of the project so individuals understand the ways of working on the initiative. As well, what's really important for project managers is that they learn how to influence and persuade others.
Yeah, interesting. It's a very soft power influence, isn't it? It's quite interesting in that, you know, with time and experience, you realise just how strong it can be. So just thinking about that then, can that influence, can that power actually be turned into a force for good on a project?
Oh, definitely. And, project managers can be engaged in positive project politics, which means that they align themselves with powerful individuals in the organization in order to make the project successful. Now, this is a win-win situation. So the project manager, let's say, would align themselves with, let's say, the operations manager or some other powerful person who has power over finance, budget, as well as resources, so that they're able to get what they need to make the project successful. And again, it is a win-win situation, so everyone benefits.
Excellent, thank you. And last question now for you: how important do you feel that project sponsors understand their role in working to deliver the desired outcomes and helping to address project politics?
Project sponsors play a very important role in dealing with project politics. They are usually the escalation for the project manager. They're usually the ones with power over resources and technology and finances. And, it's really important that they play a vital role in dealing with project politics, because sometimes it is outside of the project manager's scope or remit to deal with certain risks and issues. The project manager would need to escalate to the project sponsor. So it's really important that project sponsors understand their role in dealing with project politics, and they're able to create, again, those win-win situations for the initiative.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Shontelle. I feel that we've got a toe at least into the water of the swimming pool that is project politics. So some great thoughts and insight shared there. Thank you very, very much indeed. Really good going.
Thanks, Nick.
So Charlotte, let's go back to the panel now, if we may, and bring up the questions for the focus topic. And we'll start with our first question, please.
I think this might be a question from one of our panelists. Raising project issues could be very political and contentious. Do you have any tips for handling this?
Okay, all right. Shontelle first.
All right, so I totally agree. Raising project issues can be contentious, but it's all about how you do it. Let's say there's a project issue regarding one individual on the team. It's nice to pull them aside, have a one-on-one chat with them instead of berating them and calling out the issues within the group. So it's always nice to have that confidential chat if there's an issue with one person in the project team. Now, if there's an issue with regarding the project team in general, it's always nice, again, to call a meeting, make it confidential, and be absolutely open and honest about the issue. Put it out there, have a discussion, invite everyone to give their opinion, and always focus on solutions. We want individuals to put forward their solution so that at the end of the discussion, some kind of consensus and way forward is mapped out. So once you are real and you put the issues out there and you do it in a genuine way with solutions in mind, you have a better chance of raising project issues and getting a good solution as the outcome.
Okay, thank you very much. Jackie, what's your insight into this?
Well, some great points there by Shontelle, and have to echo everything she said. But I've worked in environments where, they really just don't welcome any issues at all. And even that you dare to say anything, it's almost a sackable offence, and I'm not joking. So what I've done sometimes when I really need answers out of people and not getting them is to use a key working assumption log. And I don't know why it's not part of general sort of best practice and out there in all the methods we know and love. I used to actually put things down saying, well, I'm going to have to call this. I've got to make a decision to make any progress. So I'd put down what my assumption was and say, well, you've got 2 weeks to say otherwise. And also, it's kind of a little bit of a less contentious way of putting something forward by raising it as an assumption rather than an issue. It seems more acceptable.
That's a very it's a very British way, actually, of doing that. We'll come back to that in a moment about how different cultures kind of work with this. It's quite interesting. Jeroen, what would be the Dutch equivalent of raising it gently as an assumption?
Well, let's have the agile culture of openness, transparency, and the courage.
Okay.
So that you allow to show what goes wrong.
Yeah. It's I think it's such a good question though, this, Jackie, seriously, because we need to create safe spaces in projects if we're going to deliver better outcomes. If simply everybody agrees with something that's said, even though they're thinking this is going to end badly, that's not helpful. It's so much better if individuals, and teams and even groups within functions or even sites, if it's a multi-country rollout, can actually, raise objections and talk properly about what it is that they have, as their concerns, their issues and so on. And to Chontelle's point, if they're asking from in the methodology, which is all about, how do we create a better future, then that's absolutely to be applauded and to be supported. And project managers and change managers and everybody that's actually involved in a project at the time, we all have a role to play in creating those conditions so that colleagues feel confident, as Jeroen says, to follow that transparency and the agile method and the approach that says every thought is valid, and let's make sure that we hear every voice. Okay, very good, excellent. Thank you very much, panel. Charlotte, let's move on, please.
Nick, your questions are very popular today. Does the panel feel enough is being done to educate project sponsors on their role and responsibilities?
Well, I put this one in. It was a bit of a rhetorical question, I have to say. Jeroen, kick us off, and then we'll go to Bikram.
Yeah, well, usually that's not the case. However, I see the side effect of me having trained so many people on project management that also clear. It's important to have the roles and responsibilities of the project board very clear and make sure that when the project starts, you let them sign it and let them know what their responsibility is. It resulted in that I have been giving management teams on organizations also in what their board role will be in the project.
Thank you very much, Bikram.
I'm with you, Jeroen, on this, on this topic, and definitely this is a very good question, and this is quite contemporary, if you see. And when I talk to different stakeholders, what they say most of the time, it is the top leadership or the sponsor in particular who is not having the buy-in for this change or for this project, right? So definitely we are getting that slow, steady steps, but slowly, the project sponsors will all be there within their roles and responsibilities.
Jackie, your thoughts, please?
Yeah, historically, when I was in the classroom, a lot of students would say, yeah, hey, this is all really great and the best practice is wonderful, but I know I'm going to go back to the workplace, and because my boss or my sponsor isn't aware of any of this stuff, I don't think I'm going to be able to implement much of this. So historically, and just from experience, I would say it has been an issue, but I think the worm's turning. And I think with the advent of, there are methods like MSP and Praxis, and there's generally an increasing awareness. And I'm working with a client right now who want to address this very issue. And part of it is making the SROs and the sponsors more accountable, more involved. And it's not just, hey, project managers, go on your training and it's your problem. And it's actually educating that higher level and getting to them. But I think it's changing.
Okay, thank you very much. Shontelle?
And just to add, when I run projects and we're having the project kickoff meeting, a part of that meeting, I always list the roles and responsibilities of the key stakeholders. And I always emphasize the roles and responsibilities of the project sponsor. We're going to be escalating issues to you. We need you to communicate certain messages, etc. So they know from project start what their role is going to be. And I always follow up with communications to let them know I'm coming to you now, so that, you know, you can send out a communication, or you need to have you need to speak to managers about buying, etc. So it's stating those roles and responsibilities up front for the project.
I think that that's so important. I think a general theme I would say, just to finish on, is that as organisations adopt a more democratized approach to managing these kinds of situations, then project sponsors need support, and they need support because they actually have quite a lot to lose. Sometimes it's face, you know, it's just around their own kind of personal credibility. If they've taken a decision early on that then proves later on in the project lifecycle to be, you know, perhaps needing to be reversed or altered or tuned in some fashion or another. So just working with them, you know, throughout and consistently and so on, and involving them throughout, it's a really, really good approach and idea. Thank you, panel. Next question, please, Charlotte.
Okay, we've got a question from Romain, Paris, France. In our organisation, politics seem to play a big role in projects and negatively affect the outcome of the project. Is there a framework or best practice that can help with this?
Okay, so what of the frameworks could we draw upon, Jeroen?
Well, definitely the framework that you would be using is benefits mapping, or the benefits dependency network, that you clearly visualize the why, what are the drivers, what is the objective that will take away those ugly drivers for us, that we can have indeed the benefits that we want, and very tangible, and what do exactly we deliver as a deliverable that will contribute to that benefit. Because if you don't have deliverables that contribute to a benefit, you won't get the benefits. Make it very transparent and have that benefits mapping also in your war room. And then discuss that again with all the stakeholders involved, because they must also judge whether those benefits are really benefits for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that, you know, data can kill a lot of the negativity. You know, if you're able to support with real evidence gathered, you know, in near real time and presented on a consistent basis over a period of time. So even if you don't get to your goal immediately, if you can demonstrate that there's a trend which is improving, you know, towards your goal, and that the time period may be extended a little further to realize fully the benefit, that's much better than just saying, well, we didn't get there. You know, so it's a really, really important combination of the points that Jeroen's made, and also look for data, support with evidence wherever you can. Great question, Romain. So thank you very much indeed. Charlotte, let's move on, please.
Okay, I believe this is a question from a live viewer, Laura McNara. Change management is seen as fluffy and not a necessary part of project management, especially when it comes to tight resources and cutting out the unnecessary to get things over the line. How do you convince the key players how important it is in integrating good people management?
Okay, Shontelle, I think I might come to you first, if I may, on this one, because it does feel to me a little bit that Laura is speaking from the heart here. So let's start with you, and then we'll work our way around the panel. Go ahead.
Okay, so change management is definitely not fluffy. Change management deals with getting persons on board, getting them bought into the initiative, and ultimately having them adopt a product or a service. So it is definitely important, because that determines success, really, of the initiative. So how do you convince key players? Well, what you can do is look at some statistics of projects that had change management integrated and projects that did not have change management integrated. Projects without change management may not be as successful. I mean, you may have a product or service delivered, but are individuals adopting and using that product or service? So what you can do is do a little bit of a comparison so that you can show key stakeholders that projects with change management integrated have a better chance of success than projects that don't.
Thank you very much. Bikram, what are your thoughts on this? How would you help Laura?
Yep. So change management and project management, they go hand in hand. And again, Shontelle's view, I'll echo that. And we need to have those buy-in, if possible, from all the stakeholders to show them that, yes, it is doable and the importance of change management. And it also depends who is driving, whether it is the change management that is driving the project management or the project is driving a change. And based on that, probably we can take a calculative way to look into it.
Okay, thank you, Jeroen. And then Jackie?
Yeah, it's more also on terminology, because strictly speaking, projects deliver output, and it's programs that help embed the output in the organization so that the organizations will get the benefits there. And that's, I agree, that's what we're saying, that change management and project management should go hand in hand in program management, because then it will get the result for the organization. But it's more terminology or definitions of project and programs than that it's seen as something that's not necessary, because I fully agree. If you don't do change management, it's just laying on the floor and useless.
Okay, thank you very much. Jackie, your thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of the definitions when you talk about what is a project, talk about them as being change enablers. They don't talk about it's just delivering stuff. It's no good delivering stuff if the stuff doesn't get used. So if people think it's fluffy, well, how fluffy or expensive is it to make something that never has any uptake and just sits there? You've wasted a lot of time and money. And it's used to be historically so often the thing that was overlooked. And with change management now recognised as a discipline in its own right, I think that's happening less and less, and increasing focus on the benefits, the why. Why are we doing this, rather than just here's a thing.
Yeah, absolutely right. Laura, I would say that the question itself reflects, to some extent, the maturity of the organisation, where their opinion is so presumptive, that change management somehow or another is seen as something which you can cut in order to be able to meet a resourcing requirement or something. And project managers generally are preparing solutions to a business problem, and change managers are generally preparing the organization to adopt a solution. So one without the other kind of makes little sense to me, both in my professional career earlier in my life, and also in my experience, kind of so far. So I think that they have equal gravity to them. And in all seriousness, we've seen so many reports, lessons learned reports, research done as to why projects fail, that by now we kind of should be getting it, all right? That these are two sides of the very same coin. And if you're spending coin, you need to look at both sides of it, because it's a lot of money that's usually at stake and involved. So really good question, though. Thank you for asking it, because it is the situation still, of many people out there, working on these activities and these projects day to day. Charlotte, may we have the next question, please? Thanks, Laura. Great question.
We've got a question from Tim, Johannesburg, South Africa. How do I ensure that project team members feel accountable for their project outcomes?
Okay, accountability. How do we ensure that? Jackie, and then Shontelle.
I think if you are a doctor of agile techniques and methods, obviously the team one of the behaviours is that the team should feel empowered and making decisions. And when people are involved in making decisions, and creating how the project goes, they feel a greater ownership just naturally. because they've been brought in and involved in. And if you're not in the Agile world, a more traditional project, get those people to give you the estimates. Go to them. Don't, make the estimates up. Go to them. And if they've told you this thing is going to take me 2 weeks, then they feel kind of a bit more duty bound to deliver something in 2 weeks. So I think those are a couple of ways.
Thank you very much indeed, Jackie. Completely agree. My colleagues might like to look at the whole idea of RACI, and we'll come back to that in a moment. Shontelle, your thoughts?
Sure. So when I work on projects, I like to set expectations of the project team up front. As well, I like to involve project team members in all aspects of the project. So when we have a project meeting with the customer, I am not the one leading the meeting and speaking for the entire hour that the meeting is for. I involve project team members to do different tasks in the meeting. So for example, if there's a technical lead within the meeting and their role is to do show and tell, I would kick off the meeting and then invite that technical lead to do the show and tell of the product and answer any questions that the customer has. And, that customer facing aspect of getting team members involved helps them to take ownership of their part of the project, because they're now in the hot seat and they now have to answer questions. And, that interaction kind of breeds accountability. So that's how I ensure that project members are accountable for their role and their aspect in the project.
Okay, thank you. Jeroen, anything to add?
No, fully agree with what Shontelle is saying.
Okay, perfect. It's probably worthwhile. We'll just put a little link in the chat for folks to have a look at that kind of RACI matrix or index. Who's responsible for things? Who is accountable? Who should be consulted? And which communities should be informed? Is a great way to structure your thinking and to get some clarity around the difference between responsibility and accountability. So very good. Thank you very much, panel. We've got time, I think, just to fit in 1 or 2 more questions if we go at some pace. So Charlotte, next question, please.
Question from Jackie. How can project managers protect themselves when their projects get very political, especially when they don't seem to be getting much support?
Really important, this, isn't it? That the project manager isn't left, I think the problems of the entire organization. Jeroen, how do you protect yourself in this kind of situation? You've led some high-profile projects from time to time. You've still got most of your hair, so you must be doing something right.
Yes, it's for me very simple. I'm an external consultant, so the worst thing that can happen is that they kick me out. The bad thing is that the project will fail. So usually it means as a project manager, you must be very strong and dare to say no if it goes too political and you don't do what you ask, you do what is needed, and you should be strong on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Shontelle.
And some of the tactics a project manager can use to protect themselves is to follow up by email, have everything in writing. I mean, things can be agreed on conference call or over the telephone, but it really makes a difference when it is in writing in an email. So always have an email trail. Also list issues in an issues register and risks in a risk register. So that if called upon to give some kind of evidence when a risk arises, you can have a trail of that. So having good documentation is really important. Having those project documents up to date, as well as that email trail. And don't be afraid to escalate to the project sponsor. They're the individual with power and authority to help you through some of those political issues. So don't be afraid to escalate and call a meeting. Call an emergency meeting if things are getting too political and the project comes to a standstill. Invite all the key stakeholders so a discussion can be had.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Jackie, has that gone some way towards your thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think the stats for project failures are not great, are they? And, if I've been in very, very political projects as contractors and a permanent member of staff, and it can feel very threatening. And I think you can protect yourself by having an awareness of best practice. And if you can demonstrate that you have been following best practice, and like Shontelle said, you've got that audit trail of risks and issues, and you can come back to it and say, hey, I did raise this point, and maybe many times. And I think that's probably one of the best protections that you can have is to show that you did the right thing. And some projects, unfortunately, just fail, whether that's they're late or they're over budget or whatever it is. But if you follow best practice, you've got an awareness and you can diligently show you've done the right things. I think that's some of the best protection you can have.
I agree with that entirely. Be authentic, remain authentic, true to self, and, speak truth to power. And, like Jeroen said, you're in a role of huge responsibility, yes, but at the same time, you just have to tell the truth as you see it, and, say that this is actually getting to the point now where, there's a serious risk to the integrity of the whole project or program or whatever initiative it happens to be, and steps need to be taken accordingly. And always if you can do, have that empathy for the host organization, because if your project's struggling, then doubtless this is not the first one that's struggled. Probably had other ones as well. If you're working as an external consultant, it might be your first experience of working with that client. It won't be their own first experience of having challenging situations. So speak truth to power. Really good. One last question, I think, to round off on, please, Charlotte, and then we'll go to the panel for their closing remarks.
Question from Romain, Paris, France. Is there a free project and program assessment tool that will help us see how well we are performing compared to other similar organizations?
Okay, so there's a few kind of levels to this, I guess. There's certainly maturity assessment tools that you can look at. There's some really good stuff on praxisframework.org that I think you should start your research, Romain. So have a look there, praxisframework.org. We'll put a little link into the chat for you. Begin there and explore some of the resources, and that will take you on a journey towards looking at project, program, and portfolio management, and the kind of maturity indexing that goes alongside it. So panel, closing remarks on today's show. Shontelle, if we can come to you first, and then Bikram.
It was an excellent session. I totally enjoyed it, and the questions were top notch. So thank you to the panelists, Nick, Charlotte, and also the viewers.
Okay, thank you very much, Bikram, and then Jeroen.
Yep, I enjoyed a lot being part of this marvelous panelist here, and good questions, definitely. And your company, Nick. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeroen. And Jackie?
Yeah, excellent discussion. Okay, maybe just one addition on the politics in a project. I remember myself putting myself really on the desk of the business sponsor with the statement, either you're going to phone security and get me kicked out and you never see me back again, or you're going to make this decision now. He made the decision now, and yeah, it was a government project. Finished 2 months before time, finished 10% below budget. Very unusual for governance projects.
Very well done. Very well done. I think that deserves a focus topic all by itself, that one, Jeroen. So we might come back to that as some lessons learned for others. So thank you very much. There are those moments in life, aren't there, where you've just got to do what you've got to do. Jackie, and then Charlotte.
Yeah, it's a great topic, and I think one that hits all of us if you're involved in projects. Actually, whatever level you get exposed to politics. And the key to it really is good communication. The right messages, the right tone, the right timing, understand your audience, who you're speaking to, communication.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Mercilessly transparent.
Indeed,
mercilessly
thank you.
transparent.
Charlotte, yeah. Quite an interesting and dynamic set of questions today. Your thoughts?
Fantastic session, fantastic episode. Thank you to our panelists and thank you to our viewers who have submitted the questions. We did have many that we still couldn't get through again, but we will pick them up on another session. So thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Looking forward to the next one.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you very much. Great job, panelists. And also to our producers, of course, everybody who's out there watching and submitting your questions now. Looking forwards. On Level Up next Monday at 8 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, we're going to be looking at careers and specifically how to build out our facilitation skills, something that could have actually helped quite a lot when you're dealing with project politics, to bring people together and facilitate the answer rather than just giving the answer to people and alienating them when you do that. So it's really critical about thinking about facilitation techniques and how much more we could achieve even in our day-to-day meetings and dealings with colleagues. Later the same day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to return to the world of online learning and particularly focus in on how do we author better courseware for online delivery specifically. So I'm delighted to share with everybody that you can now find the audio versions of Level Up episodes available as podcasts on your preferred platform, including things like Spotify, Google, and Amazon. So subscribe to the show and we'll send you a personal summary each week of what's coming up and how you can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.